Welcome to StallSide Podcast.
Bart, how are you doing today?
It's a fabulous day. Thank you. How are you today?
I'm living the dream, but nightmares are also dreams. A little bit of a different show today. We're actually going to do a little bit of a retrospective and see where we were in 2021.
Yeah, it's good to just go back. We've done this. Been close to a year now. Not quite. We got started a little bit late last year, but been going at it for almost a year, and just do a little bit of a recap show and let people know what's coming this for 2022.
Yeah, nobody's thrown any fruit yet, so I feel pretty good.
That's right.
Yeah,
we're doing okay. I think we're doing okay. But again, having said that, let us know if you want something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that shout out to the audience here for listening, and also if there's something you want to hear or somebody you want to hear from, just get hold of us, and we'll see if we can make it happen.
Yep, we get a few of those requests, and we do our best to incorporate the things that folks are asking for. So that feedback is important.
Yeah, very important. So we got underway with Dr. Tom Riddle.
Yeah, there was no place else to start. I didn't think here Dr. Rood, but Tom had just written a book. Yeah. So I think that was the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, and it was just good to talk to him. And I mean, he's a total gentleman. And you watch him work, there's just no wasted motions.
Yep.
I mean, he's just like smooth and everything just keeps going. It's just interesting to get his take on things. And it was just, I'll just say it again, it was just so heartwarming to see the way he talked about Margaret. And, he's just so enamored with her. She's such a lovely person. They got such a great family. And, it's just great to see good people be so successful.
Right. And he's has a love for the broodmare.
Mm-hmm. He certainly does.
That has never died, and has pushed him to this point in his career. And so, it was a great recap. And then we moved on to Dr. Rood. We talked to Dr. Rood somewhere there in the first few shows, and from the outside, they're very different people, but I think at their core, they're very similar, and you can see why they were so successful together.
Yeah, I think they had complementary skills too, in that, you see, again, Dr. Riddle just sits down there, very methodical and very works away. And Dr. Rood sort of sees the big picture. I mean, he understands how things work financially. And, he with Dr. Riddle, they had a vision to build a clinic. I mean, who would have known where it would have ended up?
Right. Yeah, no, without his vision and his leadership, because Dr. Rood he wasn't scared.
No.
And one of the things that I've learned about some of the very most successful people is they're not afraid to fail. And I think Dr. Rood fits into that category. I think he took a lot of risks early on, and they paid off for him and for us. A lot of people are the beneficiaries of his vision and his fortitude.
Yeah, absolutely.
Skills.
Yeah, and we wouldn't have StallSide podcast without them.
That's right.
And the world would be a lesser place.
Oh, it would be less of a place if there wasn't a StallSide podcast.
So interspersed amongst that, we actually had a bit of a talk about dystocias and foals. We had Dr. Mariah Snowbrick talked a bit about on-farm dystocia, and then Kate Christie talked a little about the foals' first 24 hours. And then we were right in the middle of a novel rotavirus outbreak, and we heard from Dr. Emma Adam from the Gluck Centre, and that was actually a very interesting talk, because this virus seemingly came from nowhere, but wow, did it make an impression.
Yes, it did, and I think we're better prepared for it now than we were before, and a lot of that due to the Gluck Center and Dr. Adam for her work that she did on it. So it's good to have her in here, and she's a great person. I was able to run into her a few times at the AAP, and she's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we had Dr. Steve Reed, and again, who doesn't know Steve Reed? A bit of a towering figure in the profession. He's spent a lot of time in academia and pushed the boundaries a lot on neurological disease in horses, EPM, wobblers.
Yep.
And it was great to sort of get his take. So he's a pretty interesting life and pretty interesting character, actually, when he talked about his journey to becoming a veterinarian.
Yeah, right.
It all started with castrating bull calves.
He's a very smart and very humble person.
Yeah, very much so. And, in his career, he's worked with some storied people, and one of them was Dr. John Hubble, who actually, helps us with anesthesia down here at Rood and Riddle, and he's done some amazing things.
fabulous. You know, and he did that presentation at the AAP a year ago where he did the Milne lecture, which was the feature lecture, and just went through all the things with anesthesia. It was a fabulous presentation. We tried to reproduce some of that on the show, and I think we captured it pretty well. Didn't get it all, but I think he did a great job of bringing that to us and talking about the history of anesthesia. And you know, even Larry Bramlage will tell you that's one of the things that has made him so much better and made it possible for him to be who he is, as his horses can lay still for as long as they do. And that's it took some innovation to be able to anesthetize a horse for as long as they do. And Hubble's at the forefront of that.
Yeah, and actually get them to stand up and walk away afterwards, regardless of what was done on the table. That's it. But, yeah, there's a bit of a human side in the StallSide podcast too as well. I mean, you know, our friend, and I know you work very closely with John Hall for a number of years, and it was great to have from TaylorMade actually give him a little bit of a...
Yeah, Mark Taylor was here with us, and we did a tribute to John Hall, and I miss John, and a great horseman, had a great influence in so many people's lives, loved the horse, loved the people around him, and he's missed.
Yeah, and then we went on to Scott Morrison, who actually is, again, one of the towering figures in equine podiatry.
Pioneer,
I mean, essentially, he blazed the specialty. It's great to have him in the practice. He's generous with his advice, and it was just great to hear his journey becoming a veterinarian as well. Is that, you know, a lot of us have taken some pretty interesting pathways to get there.
Yeah, and I don't know if I said it in the podcast, but one of the things I told Scott Morrison when he got done with his internship, I said, dude, if you're going to make it in this town, you've got to get into broodmares, Palp broodmares. And he went a totally different direction, and I didn't think it was going to work. But wow, has he changed the lives of horses? They save a lot of people. That group, and it's an entire division here. They save a lot of horses that wouldn't be saved otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, and not just here; it's everywhere. I mean, they're internationally recognized. They're generous with their knowledge, and they've influenced a lot of people and helped a lot of horses. And the other thing pretty big in horses around here is teeth. And we've got Dr. Brad Tanner on staff, and he's made quite the specialty of dealing with teeth, and that was a pretty fascinating session we had with him as well, talking about everything he does and everything he sees and just the complexity of what he does.
Right, because these are huge animals. They do some damage to their teeth, and but they get a lot of the same problems that you and I, who eat too much Halloween candy, get.
Well, that's if you go for that sort of thing, Bart, that's fine.
I do.
Yeah. The interns came and gave us a little bit of a talk about what they were hoping for in the program and their journey to getting here. And it's just always really heartening to actually see people start. And we were all there at one point, but we didn't recognize it at the time. And just, you know, they come here for a while and they go somewhere else for a while and then they go and make their careers. And that's a great thing about going to a meeting and seeing old interns from this practice that have now started up their own practice. And, you know, they're looking for people to employ, and, you know, clinically they're doing really well, and they're going out and, you know, just providing good quality equine services in other areas that may not have been serviced before. And so that's really rewarding to see people that do that, because you think, okay, well, people helped me along the way, and you've handed it on because you've helped them along the way as well. Yeah,
it's good to see what the mentorship can do, because if you look at the interns that have left this program and like you said, the influence that they're having on veterinary medicine and throughout the country and the world, it's fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good community to be part of.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, but that community sort of had the tone set for it by a certain Dr. Rolf Embertson, who was pretty early on in this practice, and he's definitely, and I know you've said this, and I agree, he's definitely sort of stamped his sort of personality and ethos on the practice and the way it works.
He sure has, yeah.
Besides being an annoyingly good surgeon.
Yeah, he is great. And you mentioned all those interns. You know, I don't know that he could do it now because it's so big, but it was just a couple of years ago. He could go around the room, list every intern, where they're at, what they're doing, and what year they were here. Yeah, just phenomenal. The mentorship that he has provided for so many people. And when you talk about creating culture, I think he's done as much for that as for us as anyone, because quality and the horse come number one to him, and he makes sure that it's the same for everybody around him. Yeah, that's right. And for anybody out there that thinks interns come to Rood and Riddle just to eat their lunch,
I think the fact that he knows them and was so invested in them while they were here, I mean, I think that's influenced all of us in the way we treat the interns, but
absolutely,
I think they should also realize that, we put a lot into them and they're not forgotten when they leave. We want to see them go ahead and do well, and we want to help them on their way.
100%.
Dr. Sarah Templeton, who's actually our surgery resident, she actually gave us a nice little talk on what you need to know about colic as well. So, anybody out there's got a colicking horse would definitely benefit from listening to that podcast.
Yeah, a great personality with a great future in front of her. She was a lot of fun.
Yeah, speaking about personalities, we had Mariah Schnobrick come back. She was one of our first speakers, and she actually talked about what she learned at the Therio conference from last year. And, for anybody that's out there doesn't know what theriogenology is, essentially it's animal reproduction. And every year, when COVID doesn't stop it, people get together and talk about things and exchange ideas. And so this town runs on broodmares, and so it's very, very important, the information she brought back. And again, that's anybody who has an interest in equine reproduction, what's going on now, would benefit from listening to her take on that meeting. Rhodococcus equi is also a big problem as well, and we had a nice talk from Dr. Bill Gilsen and my colleague, and he talking about the latest things that were going on with Rhodococcus equi, and I mean that's just going to be a really hard nut to crack. I mean that is a wily, tenacious condition, and we've struggled with that for years.
But he did remind us, maybe there's a few things that we can do different, and some things in the future. Maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel with that. So
yeah, there is. Dr. Katie Garrett, she actually gave us a great talk on diagnostic imaging, and we're lucky here at Rood and Riddle as we've got some toys. We've got the radiography, we've got ultrasound, bone scan, and the CT, which is the more we use it, the more we want to use it. It's really helped. Brad mentioned that with his teeth, it really helped. But also the neurological side of it, we've put a lot of horses with neck problems through the CT after our myelograms, and we find horses we otherwise wouldn't have. And it was just great to get Katie's talk on what's going on at the moment and what's coming. She talked about a technology known as PET scanning, which is maybe a very sensitive way to sort of see early bone turnover, which may be predicting injury in athletes. And so I'm pretty excited to see how that develops.
Yep, and the other thing Katie's been really good at, because you can have all the toys that you want, but if you don't use them properly, if you don't have good quality control, which Katie does a good job here of, we have some surgeons who do the same. We have a lot of people who are dedicated to quality, but none more than Katie. She does a good job of making sure that that we are using the equipment properly and getting good images from them.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we don't always win. And sometimes there's situations where the horse expired, and sometimes there's disease situations on the farm. And it was really informative to get Dr. Rebecca Ruby here from the Diagnostic laboratory, because she talked a lot about how it works and how it can be useful like an infectious disease outbreak. And I think a lot of people in this town, even in the industry, don't realize how good a resource they have at the Diagnostic lab, because this is one of the few places in the world where there's so much concentration of the horses and so much concentration of expertise servicing those horses. To have that quality of diagnostic facility on our doorstep and have it interface with the industry and we all learn together, I just don't think people really realize how lucky we are.
And not just here, but it's so widespread, because what they learn, they share. It goes throughout the world. So
yeah,
it is a great resource.
Yeah, and then we went back to see our friend and colleague Steve Reed talked about one of his pet subjects, EPM.
Yep.
And that was basically possum to horse. He just laid it all out there. And if anybody that has an interest in EPM and wondering, how we got to where we are with the state of our knowledge and where we're looking to go to, would really benefit from listening to that special episode from Steve. And speaking about special episodes, we had Dr. Martin Nielsen in from the Gluck Center, who is an engaging and lively speaker on the subject of parasitology. I didn't realize worms could be so much fun.
He loves worms.
Yeah, he does.
And it was obvious. He loves parasitology.
Yeah.
And, it's a good thing that we have somebody like that, because the depth of knowledge that he has is quite amazing. And, he's done a lot of good.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, once upon a time, we thought worms were done and dusted. Like ivermectin came out, and that was just going to fix everything. And people, looks like didn't use these products very intelligently, and now we're sort of painted into the situation now where we don't really have too many places to go, and we've actually got to look at some pretty innovative management techniques to try to actually get this problem under control. So again, I mean, if you are in a situation where you have a lot of horses in one place, that podcast from Dr. Nielsen really does tell us a lot about parasitology and where we are and where we need to go to, and how we and why we have to be so careful with the medications we have at the moment.
Yeah, because people keep yelling at the drug companies to develop more medications, more parasiticides.
Yep.
But we as managers of those need to do a better job of using them properly so they don't develop resistance so quickly.
Yeah, and we've got to undo a lot of harm that's already been done because we just did not understand.
No, it was the days of, once a month rotate dewormers is done.
Yeah, and speaking of not understanding, we had a great talk from Scott Pierce about how he got to where he is and all the way through his career, and maybe in some ways didn't know exactly what he signed himself up for when he was looking to castrate some horses. That was actually a really good story.
Yeah, that was a good story. And so my friend and mentor Scott Pierce was on the show. We had a lot of fun with him, and he's done a lot in the world of upper airway endoscopy in the field. And just as a little bit of a teaser, I think we'll have him back and have him dive a little bit deeper into that subject, because we had some people tell us, hey, you were just starting to get to the really good part, and then you cut it off. But I think that's a whole nother show all by itself.
Yeah, and he had a good castration story. He had some great deworming stories, and I'm looking to see what else he comes out with. He's a little bit of a showman.
He is, yes.
Yeah. Scott Morrison came back to see us and had a great talk about laminitis. He just went right into the nitty-gritty, and that was really informative. He just laid it all out there, diced it all up, and just made it easily understandable where people think this condition really is and where it's going.
Yeah, because it's a little bit more complex than most people think of it, and multifactorial. There's lots of stuff going on. There's a lot of moving parts, and he broke it all down for us very well. Yeah,
and there's I just listened to that podcast again and again and again, and every time I listen to that, I get something out of it. I mean, the guy is just a wealth of knowledge. We finished 2021 on a little bit more of a sobering note, in that we had a little bit of a talk on the human cost of veterinary medicine from Dr. Melanie Goebel of Not One More Veterinarian.
Yeah, and that's I think it's good to sometimes expose these issues and just let people know what's going on. And we thought it was important to talk about the human side of veterinary medicine just a little bit, because there is a cost, and not all of this is bright and sunny. And so being able to bring that, hopefully help people understand, some of the emotional problems that some of our veterinarians go through, and maybe we can help and cut some of that stuff off.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, being a veterinarian is a storied career, and that people look on it as, glamorous may not be the word, but it's something that, the sun always shines and everything's cute and fluffy. But it actually weighs on you a lot, and I think it goes back to how people treat each other in society as well, in that people aren't tolerant of things not going right. Nobody wants to pay more than they have to, but it costs money to actually provide high-quality service.
Yeah,
and people shouldn't be embarrassed about making a living. And everybody needs to realize, not necessarily what you say, but how you say it. It actually means a lot. And I mean, we do take on what we do seriously. And again, Steve Reed said the primary act of veterinary medicine is the assumption of responsibility. And that's actually right. And we take great responsibility for our patients. We internalize the stresses and strains that they're undergoing as part of our daily business. And it does take a cost, and because of the pressures that are on veterinarians, I can see why how some people fall by the wayside and don't necessarily take care of themselves.
Yeah, and look, the world is complicated. Being a veterinarian is some, and balancing, right? And it's not just being a veterinarian; it's managing life has become complicated, and we also know that the human brain and psyche is even more complicated. So just the more we can understand each other and be tolerant of each other, the better that is. So, and we did wrap up with our AEP wrap.
Yep.
So,
and that was great.
So that was a lot of fun, and you did a great job of summarizing some of the stuff that we learned, and putting that all into perspective. And put a ton of knowledge into a short period of time. That was great.
Yeah, and it was good to actually see everybody again. Get together and just not just go to the formal talks, but just exchange ideas informally, and just a little bit of shared mindset and shared suffering. So, but where are we going to go to?
Okay,
in
so
2022?
in 2021 we had Bill Rood, we had Tom Riddle, and we had the first associates, Scott Pierce and Rolf Embertson, but we were missing one of our founders. And that's, we've got Larry Bramlage, and we've got to get him in here. And I think people would be really interested to hear his life story. And then just, maybe we can have him summarize some of the things that he's learned about equine orthopedics.
Yeah, that would be good. Again, you're right. We definitely missed having him, but it gives us a strong way to kick off 2022. And who else do you think we're going to look to have?
Like I said, I want to have Scott Pierce back in.
Yep.
I almost said Hopper. We got to get Hopper in.
We got to get Hopper in here.
We got to get Dr. Hopper, who is one of the most talented colic surgeons in the country. But if we get Scott Pierce back too and get him to talk to us more about some of the work he's done on upper airway endoscopy and how it's affecting some of these racehorses and what we've learned, I think that would be really interesting.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to tease us with?
Sure. There's a lot of things that, I think this time of year people are thinking about medicine. We have some very good medicine clinicians and some of the people that deal with foals. Dr. Lori Metcalf is phenomenal with the new foals. She's fun to watch do a new foal exam, and I think that would be interesting to people. There's some diseases out there that we could talk about that we haven't touched on as much as we could. Strangles. We did talk about rotococcus and EPM, but I think strangles is something that we could maybe touch on. How about you?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Yeah, I just wanted to, give the audience a bit of a primer. I mean, we've come a long way in the first year.
Yeah, we're learning some things. Hopefully, you and I are getting better. But I appreciate working with you and you coming up here and taking time out of your schedule.
Yeah, it's been fun, Bart. It's it's always good to sit and talk. I mean, it's good to try to use fewer words to say the same thing. So I'm working on that.
But it's entertaining sometimes, the words that you do use.
Yeah, that's right. So, and sometimes the way I say them as well, laboratory.
Okay, so here's to a great 2021 and an even better 2022.
Yep, that's right. What could possibly go wrong, Bart?
I don't know. We'll find out.
We will find out. And that's StallSide wrap-up for 2021. We're looking forward to seeing you in 2022. Be careful out there. Happy trails, and see you next time.